everyone, and welcome to this week's podcast. And we're looking at the energies of the week from the 6th to the 12th of December. So I'm going to dive in first, but actually, Denny, how are you? I should ask you that first before I dive in. How are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm actually feeling really good. It feels this is the beginning of this new week. Feels like there's this positive shift. I think there's a lot to go through in this next month, but just at the moment, it seems to be this heightened level of intuition, heightened creativity, things sort of starting up again. It just feels, I can just feel this really positive energy moving forward. What about you?
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like I've been sort of just in a holding pattern. I think you and I were talking the other week, and one of us said, it's like the plane flying round and round, and it's definitely felt like that for quite a while now. But I feel like I'm energized. I want to move. Things are happening. Things are starting to shift. Opportunities are coming in. So the energy is very different at the moment. And yes, it's still going to be an interesting month, and this feels like a beautiful pause in all of that to some respects. I'm certainly noticing that myself.
Yeah, well, I'm interested to see what you have for the next week.
Yeah, so let's dive into that, the numerology for this week. So we're currently moving through the 49th week of 2021. So we're getting to the end of the year, of course. And this is the final week when all the week numbers begin with 4. So we're finally starting to move out of that 4 energy that we've been sitting in for the last 10 weeks, which has been weaving its way or weaving its influences through all of your experiences. So the numbers 4 and 9 of this week actually produce the karmic number 13. So this is actually a 13-4 week in numerology. And karmic numbers are always related to issues from the past that are surfacing to be addressed. So when we look at the energy of the 13-4 number, it's often associated with creative energy, self-expression, and also that may have been, if we look at it in a karmic way, how we've used that at some point as using our words to hurt others, or being idle and not putting any effort in whilst others work harder around us. So, it has a very karmic energy, this number. So when this energy is supporting you, as it is this week, then you're being asked to really dig in and work harder, which is 4 energy, towards mastering the art of more positive self-expression, which is 3 energy. So this means taking really the time to think before you speak this week, and consider your words more carefully instead of jumping in too quickly and causing upset to others. Or maybe even observing where you step into criticism and judgment of others and what triggers that within you. Looking at how you can use your words in a more positive way that really uplifts and supports the people around you rather than bringing them down. So these are sort of themes that will be running through the energy of this week. So be very conscious of your words during this karmic time, because the law of karma, of course, dictates that what you speak will create the consequences that you then have to live with. So think before you speak this week, particularly. And then as we transition through this final week of the 4 archetypal energy, it's almost as if I feel it's having its last hurrah with its karmic influences. It's almost like this energy, this 13-4 energy is coming in for us to really look at how that 4 energy works within us, because you may also be required to develop more self-discipline this week and work in a very practical way, which is very 4 energy. We can kind of think of 13-4, those numbers, as a way of working through the shadow aspects of the 4 archetype in order to really master this energy in a more powerful way. And some of those shadow aspects are that I guess may surface for some people this week are really related to things like I guess being overly controlling and manipulative, stubbornness and laziness, bossiness, blaming others, and being overwhelmed by your own limitations. So those are all the sort of shadow, well, not all, but there's some of the most conscious foreshadow energies that we can work with. So depending on whether you may even have a 13-4 number in your own chart, or if any of those individual numbers, the 1, the 3, or the 4, show up in your chart quite strongly, then you're likely to send those, I guess, experience those energies a lot more potently than someone who doesn't have those numbers in their chart. And particularly if they're your core numbers or one of your core numbers. But the chances are that we're all going to feel this, or the influences of this energy in some way, as the 4 archetype starts to leave our consciousness, but this intensity of it this week deepens somewhat. So basically this means that you're going to be challenged to meet your own karma around those themes in some way. And if you don't, if it doesn't rise for you, then that will mean that you're already sitting in I guess, a really powerful position of understanding that energy within yourself. And you've evolved, I guess, to a level of alignment with the positive aspects of the 4 archetypes. So if it doesn't show up for you, that means that's a really beautiful affirmation for yourself that you've been working through those. I mean, we have been working with this energy for the last 10 weeks. And we have all evolved and grown through this period of time. So it may be that the intensity of this week doesn't affect you that much because you've reached a really beautiful place of power within yourself around that energy. But 13-4 energy will really show you where you're not, I guess, paying enough attention to the detail of things. It can work in that way, where you may be even allowing yourself to become distracted and miss something important. It will also show you where you're reaching the edges of your self-imposed limitations, or even where you simply aren't putting in enough effort to get what you really want or finish something that really needs to be completed. So this may be a week, I think, for some people where you really feel that you have kind of reached your limit, or that one thing happens and it feels like the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back in some way. It's a week of karmic rebalancing, an opportunity to observe, to understand, to acknowledge, and to act upon in a new way what is surfacing for you. So if you're prepared to meet your challenges, then you'll be able to shift your perspective and see how your past choices are now becoming the kind of signposts, I guess, to bring you deeper into alignment with where you're going. So it's good to remember that karma isn't about punishment or making up for past wrongs. It is about learning what you've been unable to learn in the past and making new choices from that different perspective that you hold now. And I'm going to dive straight into the card that I chose for this week as well, because interestingly enough, I don't know if you can see it, it was called The Perspective. So it was actually perfect. I gave myself a little pat on the back for that one, of course. But you know, it just seems perfectly aligned to the energies that we're going to be sitting in this week. And, you know, it feels to me as if it's really asking you to work through, I guess, whatever you need to at this time to gain a fresh perspective. You can't get where you want to go if you continue to keep working with the same limitations. So the most powerful thing that you can do to support yourself is really develop a new or a different perspective so that everything can fall into place around that. So that's the numbers for this week. And I'm really keen to see, Denny, what you've got in terms of the astrology.
Okay, thanks, Fee. I can really relate to that place of speaking and watching my words, because I have a Venus in Gemini, so words are very important to me, and speaking, but it means that I process as I speak. So often I can get ahead or say things that I don't really mean necessarily, but it's my way of processing, if that makes any sense. So you're really speaking directly to me in all of that. Okay, I will just dive into this week, 6th to 12th of December. And there's just a couple of things that I see in this week that I want to speak to. But every theme that happens in December is part of a bigger chain of events that's unfolding with us. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the first Venus and Pluto conjunction in Capricorn. Normally when Venus and Pluto come together, they really do it quite fleetingly. Venus passes over Pluto. It's an event that happens quite quickly. This time, however, there's because of it's happening when Venus will be going into retrograde. She passes over the Pluto 3 times. So this, I think it happens on the 11th of December for the first time. This will be the first look at something that will then have a unfolding that will happen during Venus in retrograde. So on the 11th of December, Venus passes over Pluto and they conjunct. And then on the 19th, Venus will go into retrograde for 40 days. If anyone wants to see some beautiful sacred geometry, you just need to look at Venus and how she wanders through our skies, because it's really quite amazing. And her cycle of 40 days in retrograde has so many links to stories in history and archetypes. And so anyway, so there will be that unfolding as she goes into that 40 days retrograde, and then has the final conjunction on March the 3rd. So this is the beginning of it. And Venus is the planet of love, and Pluto is the planet of transformation. So there's going to be a depth of what you're going to need to look at in terms of what you love. And it's in Capricorn. So these things will be where we play out. So just notice what arises at around about that December 11th time. And it could be around old relationships, old jobs, old wounds, just looking where you're triggered, what comes up, like there could be something, and it may not unfold until we start going into the retrograde cycle. And when you go into a retrograde cycle with a planet, it's a reviewing. So we look at that place of love. So where are we valuing or loving ourselves over loving others, or the other way around, loving others or putting more time into others over time spent on ourselves? Having a look at unfinished business, unfinished relationships, needing to tie up old ways of being in these places so that you can move forward, maybe in a new relationship with a new way of being in that. And that could be, because it's Capricorn, it feels very much like it could be a job or a relationship, but the structure of either. We're being asked to really look at the way we've done these things. So in this next week, it's just because this is coming up around Venus, and Venus is going to be this unfolding story, really taking some time out for yourself. Really looking at the boundaries that you've got in place in your relationships and also in your work, and looking at what structure you may need to put in place so that you can support yourself, your job, and your family in a more balanced way. My feeling is it's more around it being more balanced for you. And as we come into this time, I'll actually call on my card first before I go into that piece. And that was the Temple. which actually this card came up for us yesterday in our community when we did our readings yesterday. So it's the second time I've pulled it in 2 days. And so there's, with this temple, there is this worship feeling about it, or a getting into a place of looking at what you are worshiping. Where is your time going? Where is your money going? And then looking at what you truly love and desire. And are those two actually meeting? Are you putting your resources into the places that you desire? And seeing how far out of balance that might be. I think as we go into this kind of like holiday season, there is this opportunity to take a little step back as Venus goes into retrograde and really look at whether you are putting your time into the places that could be better served for you and also for the collective. So that's the temple card, but it feels like this is also coming up around Christmas time, because we are going to be called to put a lot of our time and love into family, into probably meeting with family, into celebrating together, and into probably gift buying. And this kind of comes up in this week because we have, at the end of the week on the 12th, the North Node is conjunct with Ceres. And Ceres is mother energy, but more Mother Earth energy. And the South Node on the same day is conjunct with Mars. It feels like there's this Earth piece coming into play as well. Like, where are we? Where are our habits detracting from the earth? How can we move forward? So this has been a theme that Fee and I have talked about a lot this year. It feels like it's coming up now because we're going into Christmas. And I know for me, I've really been looking at, I start getting a little bit antsy as we get closer to Christmas. It's just this like restlessness that happens. And I think it's because I used to really enjoy Christmas, and it's become less and less enjoyable for me as I've got older. And there's almost this panic around giving and spending time with people. And I realized that we so overconsume at this time. We so show our love often through what we give and what we think people expect. And I think that we really need to kind of take stock of that and what that's doing to the earth, that maybe our families don't need as much as what we think they do. Maybe we can all reduce the amount of expenditure that we have over this time. Maybe we can look at how much plastic is in the packaging of the things we buy and make some really conscious decisions around this, because ultimately we are being asked to look internally, but what we do with the people that we love and our jobs really affects the planet. And there's so much going on there. So really being conscious of what changes you can make that will affect a lot on the planet, a lot with the earth and with Ceres. So I think that there's a level of cleaning up. I also want you to look at tradition. Tradition's such an interesting thing because I grew up as the youngest, and I was always the one that didn't want to let go of any part of tradition. And I see that with my daughter now. She just loves, doing things the same way. Actually, my son does too. Although when I spoke to him earlier in the week, and he was talking about this tradition word. And he was saying traditions, there's something really bothers me about traditions. Like, just because it's always been done in a certain way doesn't mean it's the right way. And that really hit home with me, because we can at Christmas time really fall into those habits of, this is the way my family's always done it, so maybe this is the way that we should do it going forward. And also having emotion built up with that. If we don't do this, it means something about us that's disintegrating, or that's falling away, or there's fear around those traditions not being followed in the way that they always have. Well, we've got Saturn and Uranus in that third square happening around this time. And just because it's always been done doesn't mean it's the way that we should be doing it going forward. And just the traditions that happen around this time I think we've been really asked to look at them and where they serve us and where they don't serve us, regardless of any beliefs we have around them. It's a big topic, and I've been really diving into it, Fee. I'm kind of interested what that might bring up for you around this time.
I love it. I love that you mentioned that, because it's been very conscious for me, particularly this Christmas, because I've always had, ever since we've lived here in Australia, a big Christmas with another family, and their children, and as their children have grown up, and my children have grown up and had their partners and then children themselves, this big family celebration has happened every year, and it's just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And every year we do exactly the same thing. We have all of these traditions that we created around that celebration. And then last year, when we were in lockdown over Christmas, it all fell away because we couldn't have everyone come and stay. It ended up just being me and my husband and my son and his wife. And we were, and I was heartbroken, because it was like the keystone for me, this tradition. It set me up for the year. It was like the end of the one year, and we had this big traditional gathering, and it threw me into this quite dark place for a few days, as I struggled with not being able to do what I always do. And this year, being in this year of complete change, where we've been forced, really everything's changing around us, and we've been having to let go of a lot and move forward. And this Christmas is becoming one that I've never had before. Everything about it is changing and is different, and it's almost like we've taken our traditional Christmas and we've turned it completely on its head, and we're doing everything a different way this year. And I'm so excited about it, because it's so different. And I think when I heard you say that, I thought, oh my gosh, if I think of it as just at a personal level, that's exactly what the experience that I've had this year, of letting go of traditional things that were just really, when I think about it, just in place because we always did them that way. There wasn't really a reason for it. And I'm actually a person that loves change and variety. So it was very limiting. And I can remember sometimes getting to the point of thinking, oh, we're going to do this again, and oh, we're going to do that again, rather than being joyful and excited about it. And so this Christmas holds, it's almost like it's unknown, and we don't know what it is, and we're making it up as we go along, and it looks very different, and that's really exciting.
Oh, wow. I love all that. Yeah. And the reason why I think it's a really important thing to think about now is that we're in the preparation phase. Like, we're not at Christmas yet, but what we do now will set in place what happens at Christmas Day. And my goal for myself is just simply, I'm not playing out that story if this is going to be a stressful day, and that I'm going to get, like, I need more in terms of, what I buy and what I do for my kids. And I'm just like, just calm down about it. How can I just make this day fun for me, though? And I think unless I put myself at the center of it, then no one is going to have fun. How can I actually bring back a bit of joy for myself? And what can I put into that day that will serve that? Because I think ultimately that will serve my family. So I'm really excited. I haven't come up with any answers on that yet, but I'm kind of really excited to see what unfolds just with opening the door to it. And I think, Fee, that this is another theme that's really opening up at the moment, and is around this not needing to know. And I actually think that this is what's going to be the theme for us humans moving forward, is sitting more comfortably in a state of not knowing the story and just stepping into the unknown in a much more comfortable way. For me, it seems that Saturn-Uranus square, what's unfolding is the comfort level of living in the unknown, and the comfort level of living with change happening. that seems to be, to me, what's unfolding and what will be an ongoing story for a very long time.
Well, quite unbeknownst to you, you've just created a beautiful segue into the message from the Akasha this week, which I think feels really aligned to what you were just saying there. So I'm going to bring that in now, because when I received it this morning, I thought, oh, this is beautiful. I really like this, and it's very much aligned to some of the conversations we've been having, not just recently, but for a while now. So the message from the Akasha for everyone this week is that there is no longer a path that takes you from A to B in the fastest possible way. By following this route in the past, you have missed so much of the beauty of the journey itself. The new roadmap for the future will only ever reveal the next step to take, so that you can pause and enjoy the moments as they arise. If you continue to seek out the fastest route, you will only be slowed down until you realize that it is not about getting there quickly. It is all about finding the path that brings you the most joy, expands your heart, and fills you with love. To take the slow path feeds your soul.
Oh gosh, you got to love that.
Yeah.
Beautiful synchronicity between the two of us there.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and
So,
it is that heart, the heart led with this Venus. Venus feels so important at the moment, and she's moving from Gemini. She's moving into Capricorn, and she's been in Gemini for the next cycle. I think it's an 8-year cycle, so it's pretty big. And this Capricorn place of, needing those structures to come from that heart-based place. It's I've heard it spoken about, like when she was in Gemini, she cleaned up the way that we what we know, the way that we speak, our communication, and now she's moving into Capricorn to really clean up that area of work and structure and old ways of being. So it's going to be an interesting time ahead.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, there's a lot going on this week, as always, and then a few different themes they're running through the week ahead. So I just hope you have a wonderful week and look forward to seeing everyone next week.